Listen to me. You didn't arrive here by chance. Right now, as the weight of suffering rests on your shoulders, I want you to know that I'm aware of every tear you shed. I'm about to reveal to you profound truths drawn from the depths of pain. Truths that my servant Job discovered when he lost everything he loved. Like him, you find yourself in a valley of unanswered questions, of pain that seems to have no purpose. But I, the creator of the universe, am about to transform your understanding of the meaning behind the trials you face. This is a sacred moment between us. Quiet your heart and open your spirit to what I will show you beyond the storm. In an instant, just as happened with my servant Job, your life may have been transformed. The foundations you believed were unshakable may have been shaken. Compromised health, broken relationships, financial security undone. This is the moment when many voices will try to explain the reason for your suffering, just as Job's friends tried. But I want you to understand, this is not the time for simplistic explanations, but for a deeper revelation about who I am in the midst of your storms. Open your heart now, not just seeking momentary relief, but to receive a transformative understanding that will sustain your soul beyond this trial. I am the one who permits the limits of your suffering, just as I did with Job, and I am the one with the authority to extract eternal purpose from what appears to be mere destruction. What you face has not escaped my knowledge, nor is it beyond my control. Job's story isn't just an ancient account, it's a map for your own journey through the valley of shadow. My beloved child, in the midst of this storm you're weathering, I have promises to sustain your soul. Just as I restored to Job double everything he lost, I promise that your tears will be seeds for a harvest of joy. The ashes of your pain will be transformed into beauty you can't yet imagine. Where there is now a barren desert in your life, I will cause springs of living water to flow, transforming your experience into a testimony of my faithfulness. Know that unlike what you may feel, I haven't abandoned you for a moment. As I was with Job, even in the deepest silence, I am with you now, closer than your own breath. When everything seems to be falling apart, my eternal arms are your fortress. I promise that the suffering that now seems meaningless will have purpose. Just as Job's trials revealed who he truly was, your trials will reveal who you truly are, my masterpiece that withstands life's storms. Your testimony will become a beacon for many who travel through similar valleys, and my name will be glorified through your story. My final promise is that this season of pain is not your complete story, just as the book of Job doesn't end with loss, but with restoration. Your story will not end in despair, because I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of your story, and I write redemption into the darkest pages of your life. My beloved child, I see the depth of your pain. I perceive how, like Job, you may feel betrayed by life, by people, and even by me. I know every question that echoes in your heart during sleepless nights. Why did this happen to me? Where is God in the midst of my suffering? What did I do to deserve this? I understand when you look at the ruins of what was once your life, lost relationships, compromised health, vanished security, and feel like Job, sitting in the ashes of a life that no longer exists. I understand how the well-intentioned words of those around you can feel like sharp knives in open wounds when they try to explain your suffering. Just as Job was surrounded by comforters, I know you too have struggled against advice that seems to minimize your pain or place blame on your shoulders. I see your silent tears when you feel misunderstood and alone in your pain, when it seems that no one, not even I, understands what you're going through. I want you to know that, unlike Job's friends, I'm not here to accuse you or to offer superficial explanations. I see beyond appearances. I know the integrity of your heart, even when you doubt it yourself. And contrary to what you might imagine, I am neither distant nor indifferent to your suffering. I am right here, suffering with you in every moment of pain. You are important to me. Even when your world crumbles like Job's, your value remains. Unshakable. In the ashes of everything you've lost, there's something that can never be taken away, your true identity. Job lost his children, his health, his possessions, even his respect in the community. But he never lost who he truly was. My faithful child. Just as Job declared his integrity even when everyone doubted, I want you to remember who you truly are. I formed you with purpose. Every detail of your being was carefully planned. Circumstances may change, but your value to me remains eternal and unchangeable. In the darkest hours, when Job had nothing to hold on to beyond his integrity, he stood firm. And now, I invite you to do the same. Don't let your suffering define who you are. You are much more than your struggles, much more than your losses, much more than your pain. At this moment, I want you to make a declaration of faith in the comments, repeating with me from your heart, I am a child of God. My value doesn't depend on my circumstances. My identity is secure in the hands of my Creator, who knows me and loves me perfectly. This is your true identity, not defined by your losses, but by my eternal choice and love for you. As Job discovered at the end of his journey, the most valuable treasure wasn't what he possessed, but who he was, my beloved servant. My beloved child, just as I guided Job through his suffering, I want to guide you through this valley now. First, maintain your integrity even when no one is watching. Job refused to curse me even when he lost everything. This is your first lesson. Integrity isn't determined by circumstances, but by who you choose to be in the midst of them. Second, don't condemn yourself or accept false accusations. Job's friends tried to convince him that his suffering was a direct result of his sin, but I never condemned him, and I don't condemn you now. Reject the voices that try to assign blame where none exists. Your suffering isn't necessarily a consequence of your mistakes. Third, seek me beyond circumstances. Job persistently cried out for my presence, not just for answers. And in the end, it wasn't explanations that satisfied him, but an encounter with me. Therefore, don't seek me just to understand the why, but to know me more deeply through this trial. Finally, learn to discern between true and false counsel. Not every spiritual word you receive during this time will be my voice. Test each piece of advice against my word and against the inner witness of my spirit. Like Job, you'll need to filter many well-intentioned but misguided pieces of advice. These instructions aren't additional burdens to carry, but anchors for your soul in the midst of the storm. And I promise that if you follow this path, you'll discover, as Job did, that there is purpose and divine presence even in life's darkest circumstances. My dear child, just as I transformed Job's life after his suffering, I promise to powerfully intervene in your situation. Remember that I restored to Job not only what he had lost, but double his previous possessions. In the same way, I will work in your life to transform your losses into multiplied gains. The transformation I promise isn't just external, but deeply internal. Just as Job declared, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. You will emerge from this trial with a new understanding of my presence. What now seems like a painful absence will reveal itself as preparation for a deeper encounter with me. Your story of overcoming will become a living testimony that will impact generations. Just as the book of Job has comforted millions through the centuries, your example of faith in the midst of the dark valley will be light for many who will follow in your footsteps. People will look at you and recognize my faithfulness manifested in your life. The scars that cause so much pain today will be transformed into medals of honor in the spiritual realm. Like clay in the potter's hands, I am using this pressure to shape you into a vessel of even greater beauty and usefulness. What the enemy planned for your destruction, I will transform into a platform for my glory. And I promise that the day will come when you'll look back at this same valley of shadows and clearly see the path of redemption I've mapped out. As I did with Job, I'll transform your lament into dancing, your ashes into beauty, and your confusion into a testimony that will proclaim my goodness to generations to come. My beloved child, now I want to challenge you as I challenged Job. The moment will come when you must decide to trust beyond understanding. When everything around you screams that there is no hope, when your circumstances contradict my promises, will you choose to believe in my goodness anyway? Job, in the midst of his indescribable pain, reached the point of declaring, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." This is the level of radical trust I now invite you to develop. When your feelings say one thing and my word says another, which will you rely on? Let me ask you, as I asked Job, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who determined its measurements? Who stretches the line upon it? These questions aren't meant to diminish you, but to expand your perspective. Your suffering, as great as it may be, exists within a much larger plan that you can only partially see now. And when, like Job, you feel tempted to question my justice or wisdom, remember that your vision is limited. You see only a small fragment of the complete picture I'm painting. The challenge is to maintain integrity when all seems lost, to worship when there seems to be no apparent reason for gratitude. As I challenged Job, and he responded with humility and renewed faith, I challenge you now. Will you choose to trust me even without understanding? Will you decide to worship even amid the ashes? Will you have the courage to declare my goodness when everything indicates otherwise? This is the kind of faith that not only survives the storm, but emerges stronger, purer, and more powerful on the other side. My precious child, just as Job eventually entered into direct dialogue with me, I want to invite you to an honest conversation. Don't be afraid to express your pain, your anger, your doubts. Unlike what many think, I can handle your honesty. Job poured out his heart before me, questioned my justice, expressed his anguish without filters, and it was precisely this radical honesty that paved the way for our deepest encounter. You too can come to me exactly as you are, with open wounds, unanswered questions, and even with anger. Open your heart completely to me. You don't need to use beautiful or theologically correct words. I prefer your authentic vulnerability to empty, formulaic prayers. Job discovered that even in his most bitter laments, I was listening attentively, drawing closer to him through his pain. I promise that, as happened with Job, after the time of trial will come a time of personal revelation. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you, declared Job. This is the deepest purpose of the valley, an intimacy with me that transcends theoretical knowledge and becomes living experience. I invite you to a deeper and more mature faith through this adversity, a faith that doesn't depend on favorable circumstances, but is anchored in who I am, an intimacy that flourishes even in the desert. Like Job, you will emerge from this trial with a relationship with me that many will never know because they never allowed themselves to be completely honest in their suffering. My beloved child, just as Job's story didn't end in the ashes but in complete restoration, your story is far from over. The final chapter hasn't been written yet. What you see now are just the middle chapters, where pain seems to have the last word. But I promise that the day will come when, as I did with Job, I will restore not just what you lost, but much more. I prophesy over your life today. Your trials will be transformed into testimony. Your wounds will become sources of healing for others. Your story of perseverance will inspire generations. As happened with Job, the latter part of your life will be more blessed than the beginning. Always remember, my love for you is eternal and unchangeable. It doesn't depend on your performance, doesn't diminish with your doubts, isn't shaken by your falls. I am with you in the valley. I will be with you on the mountain. I will never leave you nor forsake you. As Job learned after his long night of suffering, there is always a dawn waiting. Wait with hope for your own after-Job moment, the time when all the pieces will fit together, when purpose will be revealed, when pain will give way to glory. That moment will come. I guarantee it. Because I am the Lord, the Redeemer of all, in things, and I make all things new, including your story. My beloved child, amid this storm you're weathering, when the winds of adversity seem to howl around you and waves of uncertainty threaten to overwhelm your soul, I have eternal promises to sustain you, divine anchors that will hold firm when everything else seems adrift. Just as I restored to Job double all he lost, his sheep, camels, oxen, and donkeys, I promise that your tears will become seeds for a harvest of joy that will exceed everything you've ever experienced. Each night of lamenting, each moment of anguish, each seemingly unanswered prayer is being collected in my heavenly vessels, transforming into seeds of future joy that no one can take from you. As it is written, those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. He who goes out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with him. My beloved child, I see the depth of your pain as no one else can. I observe not just the tears you shed in the presence of others, but also those that fall silently on your pillow when everyone is asleep. I hear not just the sighs that escape your lips, but also the silent cries of your heart that never find verbal expression. I perceive how, like Job, you may feel betrayed by life, by people, and even by me. Betrayal is one of the deepest wounds a soul can experience. When life's circumstances seem to betray your legitimate expectations of a reasonably happy and secure existence, when people you trusted betray that trust through words or actions that tear your heart apart, when even your own body seems to betray you through illness or frailty, these are wounds that penetrate to the very core of your being. And perhaps the most painful betrayal you feel is the perception that I, your God and Father, have somehow betrayed you, like Job, who couldn't understand how a God he had faithfully served could allow so much calamity in his life. You may wonder if the relationship you believed you had with me was just an illusion. You did everything you knew to serve me, to live according to my principles, to trust in my promises. And now, faced with so much seemingly meaningless pain, doubt arises. Does God care? Is he really in control? Are his promises true? Or is this all just cosmic cruelty, a divine game in which we are mere pawns? I know every question that echoes in your heart during sleepless nights, when physical or emotional pain keeps rest away and leaves you alone with your darkest thoughts. Why did this happen to me? Where is God in my suffering? What did I do to deserve this? How can I continue living with this pain? Is there any purpose in all this, or is it just cruel chance? If God is good, how can he allow so much suffering? If he is all-powerful, why doesn't he intervene? If he loves me, why does he seem so distant? These aren't new questions. They're the eternal groans of wounded humanity since suffering entered the world. Job expressed them with poetic eloquence. Why didn't I die at birth? Why didn't I perish when I came from the womb? Why were there knees to receive me and breasts for me to nurse? His anguish led him to question the value of his own existence. Why give light to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? These are honest questions from a soul in deep affliction. I understand when you look at the ruins of what was once your life, lost relationships that brought so much joy, compromised health that you may have taken for granted until it was shaken, security that disappeared like sand between your fingers, and feel like Job, sitting in the ashes of a life that no longer exists. There's a particular kind of grief that comes with losing not just specific people or things, but life as you knew it, the identity you built, the dreams you nurtured for the future. It's as if an earthquake shook not just your possessions, but the very ground beneath your feet, leaving you uncertain about where you are and where you're going. I understand how well-intentioned words from those around you, phrases like, "God has a plan," "all things work together for good," "God is in control," can feel like sharp knives in open wounds when they try to explain your suffering with simplistic theologies and spiritual cliches that don't acknowledge the depth of your pain. Theological truths presented at the wrong time or in the wrong way can become instruments of torture instead of healing balm. Just as Job was surrounded by miserable comforters, friends who came intending to comfort but ended up accusing him of hidden sin and spiritual hypocrisy, I know you've also struggled against advice that seems to minimize your pain or place blame on your already overburdened shoulders. Like Job, you may have heard people suggesting your faith is insufficient, that your suffering is the direct result of some unconfessed sin, or that if you would just trust God more, everything would quickly resolve. I see your silent tears. When you feel misunderstood and alone in your pain, when it seems that no one, not even I, understands what you're going through. The loneliness of suffering is one of its most painful dimensions. No matter how much others try to understand, there are aspects of your pain that are uniquely yours, experiences that cannot be fully communicated or shared. As Job lamented, "If only my anguish could be weighed and all my calamity placed on the scales." He longed for someone who could truly understand the exact measure of his suffering. I want you to know that, unlike Job's friends, I'm not here to accuse you or offer superficial explanations. I haven't come to tell you your suffering is the direct result of some sin, nor to suggest that if you just had more faith, the pain would disappear. I see beyond appearances, beyond the masks you wear to face the world, even beyond the masks you use to protect yourself from your own emotions. Therefore, when it seems no one understands, remember, I understand. When it seems no one cares enough, remember, I care infinitely. When it seems no one is present in your pain, remember, I am more present than the air you breathe. And as I continue to work in your life, transforming even this season of suffering into something beautiful and meaningful, I am by your side, holding your hand, wiping your tears, sustaining you with my grace, and preparing you for a dawn you cannot yet see, but that will surely come. My beloved child, just as Job's story didn't end in the ashes, that desolate image of a man sitting amid ruins, covered with painful sores, lamenting the loss of everything he loved, but in complete restoration, your story is far from ending where you find yourself now. The final chapter hasn't been written yet, and as the author and finisher of your faith, I promise the ending will be more glorious than you could imagine in the midst of this trial. What you see now are just the middle chapters, those moments of narrative tension when all seems lost, the hero seems defeated, and darkness seems to have the final word. But I am the master storyteller, the one who transformed the cross, the ultimate symbol of defeat, shame, and abandonment, into the greatest victory the universe has ever witnessed. And in the hands of this storyteller, no story ends in despair. No tragedy remains without redemption. No valley is without exit. As the writer of Hebrews described faith, it is the confidence of what we hope for and the assurance of what we do not see. This is the faith that sustained Job when there was no visible evidence of my goodness, when every circumstance seemed to contradict my promises, when every piece of advice he received encouraged him to abandon his integrity and curse his Creator. And this is the faith that will sustain you even when there are no easy answers, when pain persists, when loss seems permanent, when the weight extends beyond your capacity for understanding. I promise the day will come when, as I did with Job, I will restore not just what you lost, but much more. The Lord blessed the latter part of Job's life more than the first. He had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 donkeys. And he also had 7 sons and 3 daughters. This doesn't mean previous losses were nullified or forgotten. Nothing could replace the children Job initially lost, and he certainly carried the emotional scars of that tragedy for the rest of his life. But it means that even the most devastating losses aren't the end of the story when I am the author of your life. This restoration may not come exactly in the form you anticipate or on the timeline you would prefer. Some losses will only be compensated. In eternity, some wounds will only be completely healed in the resurrection. Some questions will only find satisfactory answers when we see face to face. As Paul wrote, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." But I can guarantee that nothing you've lost, nothing you've sacrificed, nothing you've suffered will be wasted or forgotten in my economy of redemption. I prophesy over your life today, speaking not just possibilities, but certainties based on who I am and my unchanging promises. Your trials will be transformed into testimony, a testimony of my faithfulness that will reach far beyond your immediate circle or lifetime. As Job's testimony has inspired millions throughout the centuries, your story of perseverance in faith, of trust beyond understanding, of worship amid ashes, will become a formative influence in the lives of many you will never know in this life. Your wounds will become sources of healing for others, channels through which my compassion will flow to those who suffer in similar ways. As Paul wrote, "He comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." There is a form of comfort that can only be offered by those who have walked through the same valley, who have felt the same pain, who have faced the same dizzying questions, and still found my sustaining presence. Your story of perseverance will inspire generations, showing them that genuine faith isn't an escape from reality, isn't a denial of pain, isn't pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't, but is a tenacious trust in my goodness and faithfulness even when all visible evidence seems to contradict that trust. For in my sight, 1,000 years are like yesterday when it is past, like a watch in the night. In eternity, this trial will seem brief, but its lasting impact on the formation of your character and the testimony of my grace will reverberate through the corridors of time. As happened with Job, the latter part of your life will be more blessed than the beginning. Not necessarily in terms of material prosperity or physical comfort, though I often restore these things too, but in spiritual depth, in intimacy with me, in meaningful impact on the lives of others, in peace that passes understanding, in joy that doesn't depend on circumstances, in love that overcomes all obstacles. Always remember, even in moments when you feel most alone, most abandoned, most forgotten, my love for you is eternal and unchangeable. As I declared through the prophet Jeremiah, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, I have drawn you. This love isn't a fleeting feeling that fluctuates with circumstances or dissipates in the face of disappointment. It's a sovereign decision, an unchangeable reality rooted in my nature as God who is love in essence. I don't love you more when you behave well, when your faith is strong, your prayers are fervent, your service is dedicated, your life exemplary. Nor do I love you less when you fail. When your faith wavers, your prayers are inconsistent. Your service is lukewarm, your life marked by failure. My love for you isn't based on your performance, your achievements, your usefulness, or even your faithfulness, but on my unchanging nature as perfect Father, who makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. I'm with you in the valley, walking beside you even when you don't feel my presence, sustaining you even when you feel about to fall, guiding you even when the path seems lost. And I will be with you on the mountain when the valley is just a distant memory, when lessons learned in darkness shine with new light, when character forged in adversity bears abundant fruit. I will never leave you nor forsake you, not because you're perfect, but because I am faithful, not because you never doubt, but because my grace is greater than your doubts, not because you never fail, but because my love transcends your failures, not because you always understand my ways, but because my wisdom exceeds your understanding, not because you always trust in my promises, but because my faithfulness remains even when your faith wavers. As Job learned after his long night of suffering, after months of loss, pain, confusion, and questioning, there is always a dawn waiting. As the psalmist declared, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Wait with hope for your own after Job moment, the time when all the pieces will fit together, when purpose will be revealed, when tears will be wiped away, when pain will give way to glory. That moment will come, I guarantee it, not because you deserve it, but because I am gracious, not because you earned it, but because I am generous, not because you are worthy, but because I am merciful, not because you are faithful, but because I'm faithful even when you are unfaithful, for I cannot deny myself. Because I am the Lord, the Redeemer of all things, the one who makes all things new, the one who promises that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, the one who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, the one who began a good work in you and will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And so, my beloved child, as you continue your journey through this valley, know that it isn't an endless valley, but a path to a glorious destination. It isn't a life sentence, but a passage to greater freedom. It isn't a dead end, but a road home. As I promised through the prophet Isaiah, but those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And I make all things new, including your story, your heart, your mind, your purpose, your future. The chapters ahead, though not yet revealed, will be written not with the ink of hopelessness or abandonment, but with the indestructible ink of my redeeming love that transforms even the darkest valleys into pathways to a glory that eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man. A glory that will make all tears worthwhile, all suffering seem light, all waiting seem brief compared to the eternal weight of glory being produced. With love, your Father.